I was the invisible woman. I was the hands that washed the dishes, the back that scrubbed the floors, and the feet that ran to the grocery store at 10 p.m. because the family wanted a specific brand of ice cream. My name is Clarice. For 30 years, I was the live-in housekeeper for the Belmont family. I didn't just clean their house, I raised their children. I bandaged scraped knees. I cooked thousands of dinners. I knew that Mr. Belmont liked his coffee with exactly 2 cubes of sugar, and Mrs. Belmont hated the color yellow. I took pride in my service. I thought, if I work hard, they will love me. If I am useful, I will be part of the family. I was wrong. Being useful is not the same as being loved. I was 58 years old and my body was starting to complain. My knees ached when I climbed the 3 flights of stairs. My hands were stiff in the mornings, but I never complained. A good servant is silent. It was the week of the Belmont's annual summer gala. It was a massive party with 200 guests. The house had to be perfect. For 3 days, I didn't sleep. I polished the silver until my fingers bled. I ironed 40 tablecloths. I moved furniture that was too heavy for me. Mrs. Belmont was stressed. She snapped her fingers at me. Clarice, run to the cellar. Clarice, fix the flowers. Clarice, you missed a spot on the window. On the day of the party, the heat was unbearable. The air conditioning was broken in the kitchen. It was 100 degrees, 38 degrees near the ovens. I was carrying a heavy tray of crystal glasses, Mrs. Belmont's favorite antique crystal. Suddenly, the room started to spin. My vision went black. My legs gave out. Crash. I fell. The tray hit the marble floor. The sound of shattering crystal was like a gunshot. I lay on the floor, dizzy and in pain. I had cut my arm on a piece of glass. Blood was pooling on the white floor. The music stopped. The guests gasped. I looked up, trying to apologize. I'm sorry, madam. The heat. Mrs. Belmont rushed over. She was wearing a silk gown. She looked down at me. She didn't look at my bleeding arm. She didn't ask if I was okay. She looked at the shattered glass. Oh no! She screamed. Clarice, you clumsy idiot! That crystal was from Paris. It is irreplaceable. She turned to her husband. Richard, get her out of here. She is ruining the party. And look at the blood on the Italian marble. Whatever you do, don't let it stain. Richard stepped over me, literally stepped over my legs, to pick up a piece of glass. You should be more careful, Clarice, he muttered. I lay there, bleeding and humiliated, while the people I had served for 30 years worried about their floor. The ambulance came, not because the Belmonts called it, but because a guest, a stranger, insisted. As they wheeled me out on the stretcher, Mrs. Belmont didn't say goodbye. She was already shouting at the catering staff to bring more wine. I closed my eyes. The ambulance doors shut, and in that dark, quiet space, something inside me shattered, just like the crystal. I woke up to the sound of beeping machines. Beep, beep, beep. I was in a hospital room. The sheets were rough, not like the Egyptian cotton sheets at the Belmont mansion, but the room was quiet. For the first time in 30 years, nobody was calling my name. Nobody needed a sandwich. Nobody needed a shirt ironed. A doctor walked in. He looked tired but kind. Mrs. Clarice? He asked. Just Clarice, I whispered. I need to get up. Mrs. Belmont needs me. The breakfast. Clarice, you are not going anywhere, the doctor said firmly. You had a severe case of dehydration and exhaustion. Your blood pressure was dangerously high. Your body has gone on strike. You need rest. Rest. That was a foreign word to me. I stayed in the hospital for 4 days. Every time the door opened, my heart jumped. Is it them? I thought. Is it Mrs. Belmont coming to say sorry? Is it little Emily or James, the children I raised, coming to hug me? I waited. On Monday, the nurse brought me lunch. Still no visitors? She asked gently. I shook my head. They are very busy people, I defended them. They have important galas. They have businesses. But deep down, a cold stone was forming in my stomach. On Tuesday afternoon, a visitor finally arrived. It wasn't Mrs. Belmont. It wasn't Mr. Belmont. It wasn't the children. It was a young man in a cheap gray suit. I didn't know him. He carried a briefcase. Clarice Miller? He asked. Yes? I am the assistant to Mr. Belmont's lawyer, he said. He didn't sit down. He stood by the door like he was afraid of catching a disease. I have some documents for you. He handed me a thick cream-colored envelope. The Belmont crest was on the wax seal. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, there was a letter and a check. I read the letter. Dear Clarice, we regret to inform you that your services are no longer required. Due to your recent health incident, it has become clear that you are no longer physically capable of managing the household standards we require. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Please find enclosed a severance check for 2 weeks of pay. We have packed your personal belongings into boxes. They are in the garage. Please arrange to have them collected by Friday, or they will be donated to charity. Sincerely, the Belmont family. I read it twice. Terminated. Physically capable. Donated to charity. I looked at the young man. They packed my things? I asked, my voice shaking. Who packed them? The cleaning service, he said, checking his watch. But I have lived there for 30 years, I cried. My photos, my mother's Bible, my letters. Strangers touched my things. I'm just the messenger, ma'am, he said. Please sign here to confirm receipt. I signed. He left. I sat alone in the hospital bed. I looked at the check. 2 weeks of pay. That was the price of my life. That was the value of 30 years of loyalty. I had raised their children. I had kept their secrets. I had sacrificed my own family to serve them, and they threw me out like a broken vacuum cleaner. The tears didn't come immediately. Instead, a hot, burning anger rose in my chest. It started in my stomach and moved up to my throat. I had spent my life making myself small so they could feel big. I had spent my life being silent so they could be loud. No more, I whispered to the empty room. The nurse came in to check my blood pressure. Oh dear, she said, looking at the monitor. Your heart rate is up again. Are you okay? I looked at the letter in my hand. I crushed it into a ball. Actually, nurse, I said, and my voice sounded stronger, deeper. I am better than okay. I just woke up from a 30-year nightmare. I need to make a phone call, I said. I didn't have a home. I didn't have a job. My body was weak. But for the first time, my mind was clear. I wasn't going to just collect my boxes and disappear. I picked up the hospital phone. I dialed a number I hadn't called in 10 years. Hello? A surprised voice answered. Clarice? Is that you? Hello, sister, I said. I'm coming home. My sister Martha lived 3 hours away in a small, dusty town. We hadn't spoken much because I was always too busy with the Belmonts. When she invited me for Christmas, I said, I can't. Mrs. Belmont needs me to cook the goose. When she invited me for her son's graduation, I said, I can't. The Belmonts are having a pool party. I had chosen them over her, but when I called, she didn't ask questions. She just said, I'm coming to get you. Martha arrived in her battered old Ford pickup truck. She hugged me so hard my ribs hurt. She drove me to the Belmont mansion to get my boxes. We pulled up to the service entrance. My boxes were there, sitting on the wet pavement. It had rained that morning. The cardboard was soggy, my clothes, my books, my memories, all thrown outside like trash. I saw Mrs. Belmont watching from an upstairs window. When she saw me looking, she quickly closed the curtain. She couldn't even look me in the eye. Martha helped me load the wet boxes into the truck. Let's go, Clarice, she said, spitting on the ground. This place smells like rot. We drove away. I didn't look back. Living with Martha was different. Her house was small and cluttered. It smelled of fried onions and dog hair. It wasn't elegant, but it was warm. For the first month, I was lost. I woke up at 5:01 a.m., panicked that I hadn't started breakfast. I reached for an iron that wasn't there. Sit down, Clarice, Martha would say, pushing me into a recliner. Drink your coffee. The world won't end if the floor has a little dust. Slowly, I started to heal. The aches in my knees got better. The constant anxiety in my chest faded. But I needed money. The severance check was gone after paying the hospital bill. What are you going to do? Martha asked one evening. You could clean houses around here. Mrs. Johnson is looking for help. I looked at my hands. They were scarred from bleach and hot water. No, I said firmly. I am done cleaning other people's toilets. I am done being invisible. So what then? I thought about the one thing I loved doing at the Belmonts, the one thing that made me happy, even when they were screaming. Cooking. But not their fancy French food with tiny portions. I loved cooking real food. Stews that simmered for hours, bread that was crusty and warm, pies that made you close your eyes when you ate them. I want to cook, I said, but for people who are hungry, not for people who just want to show off. There was an old abandoned diner on the edge of town. It had been closed for 5 years. The windows were boarded up. The sign was falling off. I used the last of my savings to rent it. It was cheap because nobody wanted it. Martha thought I was crazy. Clarice, you are almost 60. Starting a business? I served ungrateful people for 30 years, I said, tying on my apron. I think I can serve grateful ones for a few more. I cleaned the diner myself. I scrubbed the grease off the grill. I painted the walls a bright, sunny yellow, the color Mrs. Belmont hated. I named it Clarice's Kitchen. There was no crystal. There were no tablecloths, just mismatched mugs and sturdy tables. On opening day, I was terrified. What if nobody came? At 6:00 a.m., I unlocked the door. I had baked cinnamon rolls. The smell wafted out onto the street. A truck driver stopped. Then a construction worker. Then a mom with 2 kids. Wow, the truck driver said, biting into a roll. This tastes like my grandma used to make. It tastes like home. That was the secret ingredient. Love. At the Belmonts, I cooked with fear. Here, I cooked with joy. And people could taste the difference. The diner became popular. Not fancy magazine popular, but line out the door popular. People came for the food, but they stayed for me. I didn't hide in the kitchen. I walked around. I poured coffee. I asked about their day. I listened. I wasn't the help anymore. I was the owner. I was the heart of the place. 6 months later, a familiar car pulled into the parking lot. A shiny black Mercedes. My heart stopped. The door opened. Mr. Belmont stepped out. He looked thinner. His suit was wrinkled. He looked tired. He walked into the diner. He looked out of place among the truck drivers and farmers. He saw me behind the counter. He walked up. He didn't look arrogant. He looked desperate. Clarice, he said. Mr. Belmont, I said calmly. What can I get you? The special today is meatloaf. I didn't come for meatloaf, he stammered. Clarice, the house is a disaster. We have hired 5 housekeepers since you left. None of them lasted more than a week. The food is terrible. The children are unhappy. My wife is unbearable. He took a deep breath. Please come back. We will double your salary. We will give you weekends off. The diner went quiet. Martha, who was wiping a table nearby, stopped and glared at him. I looked at this powerful, wealthy man begging for his servant to return. I looked around my diner. I saw the sun shining on the yellow walls. I saw the truck driver waving at me for more coffee. I saw my own name painted on the window. I realized I had a choice. I could go back to the mansion and be a well-paid ghost, or I could stay here and be a real person. I looked at Mr. Belmont. For 30 years, I had been afraid of this man. I was afraid of his frown. I was afraid of his disapproval. But now, standing behind my own counter, wearing my flower-covered apron, I felt something new. I felt tall. Double the salary? I repeated slowly. Yes, Mr. Belmont said, pulling out a checkbook. Name your price, Clarice. 5,000 a month? 6,000? We need you. The house has no soul without you. I laughed softly. Mr. Belmont, the house never had a soul. It had me. I took off my glasses and wiped them on my apron. You threw me out like garbage when I broke a glass, I said. My voice was steady. You didn't send a card. You didn't call. You sent a lawyer. That was a misunderstanding, he lied. We were stressed. No, I said. You were revealed. You showed me that to you, I was just an appliance. A toaster doesn't get sick days. A vacuum doesn't get respect. And when an appliance breaks, you replace it. I poured a fresh cup of coffee and placed it on the counter. I am not an appliance, Mr. Belmont. I am a woman. And here, I pointed to the yellow walls. Here, I am a person. People ask me how I am. People say thank you. People look me in the eye. Mr. Belmont looked around the cheap diner. But Clarice, look at this place. It's a dump. Come back to luxury. You belong in the mansion. I would rather scrub floors in my own dump than be a queen in your prison, I said. I pushed the coffee toward him. This is on the house, for old time's sake. Then I looked at the door. Please leave. I have customers waiting. Mr. Belmont stood there for a long moment. He looked at the checkbook in his hand. He realized that for the first time in his life, his money was useless. He couldn't buy what he had lost. He turned around and walked out. He looked very small next to his big car. Martha walked over and high-fived me. That, she said, was better than winning the lottery. That was 5 years ago. Clarice's kitchen is now the most famous spot in the county. We even have a waiting list on Sunday mornings. I hired 2 waitresses and a young cook named Mateo, who reminds me of myself at that age. I treat them like gold. I tell them, we serve food, but first we serve kindness. I heard that the Belmonts got divorced. They sold the mansion. It was too big, too cold, and too empty to live in alone. Sometimes, late at night, I sit in my diner after everyone has left. I look at the help wanted sign I keep in the drawer. Not because I need help, but to remind me of when I was the help. My name is Clarice. Serving has always been my life. I used to think that meant bowing down. Now I know that true service is lifting others up, starting with yourself. I didn't just survive the fall. I built a castle out of the broken glass. If this story about self-respect, knowing your worth, and the courage to say no touched your heart, please give this video a like. Have you ever walked away from a situation where you weren't appreciated? Share your victory in the comments below. For more emotional English stories about turning pain into power, please be sure to follow our channel.